When you begin coloring with your oil pastels, you're going to want to first avoid coloring on your pencil lines. Yes, this seems strange, but you're going to leave a bit of a black outline, leaving the black paper showing wherever you have your pencil lines. So instead, when you grab your first color, outline the space you plan on coloring in, avoiding the pencil lines, and then you can begin filling it in with color. You can use more than one color and have it blend from one color into another color as well. When you do this, it's best to use analogous colors. Those are colors close to each other on the color wheel so that they blend nicely and create a nice second color. You can also use white to lighten any color you're coloring with. And speaking of white, the skull does not have to be white. Just because we're used to seeing skulls white does not mean you have to make your skull white. Try to be creative. So as you can see, wherever I left the pencil showing, I have a black line from the black paper. But I want to darken those areas in more. So when I'm finished adding color to a large area, I will then take a black oil pastel and trace over the outline of the pencil. Basically, I am outlining all of the colored shapes that I've already colored. You just want to make sure you add black last, because if you try to color after adding black, you might smear the black into the other colored sections. The black does tend to get on your fingers. It tends to break more frequently because you're using it so often. So just keep that in mind and be careful not to get smudges on your paper. To create my background, I simply used two oil pastels, the dark blue and the white. I used the white around the edges and I blended it into the dark blue and let them mix in the middle, creating a really cool transition of color. Next, I start working on my border. Notice how I have newspaper underneath my project. This helps so that I can go right off the edge of the paper and not have to worry about getting oil pastel on the table. Also, as you'll see when I clean up, it's going to help me contain all of my little pieces of pastels that kind of crumble. Look how I'm still outlining my shapes and then filling them in. Watch how I'm adding analogous colors next to each other and letting them blend in the middle. I'm not smudging them with my fingers. I'm not using any special tools to have them blend. I let them just blend by overlapping the colors. You can see I'm still leaving my pencil lines showing, so I'm kind of creating this gap between the different shapes or different colors that I'm using. This just helps me get a good sense of what it's going to look like throughout the whole process of making it, so I'm not surprised in the end when I add that black outline. So you can see that I have the shape of the sun in all four corners and the same pattern around the frame or border of my entire project. I think this adds nice symmetry to the project, as well as the symmetry in the designs in the skull. I think if you can have symmetry in the majority of your project as well, you'll be really pleased with the results. So when it's time to clean up for the day, you're going to have all these little flakes and pieces of pastels on your project. You're going to need to very carefully shake those off onto your newspaper or directly into the garbage can. If you shake them off onto your newspaper, you must simply just carefully package that up like it's a little present, keeping all those little pieces inside the newspaper. And then you're going to carefully carry it over to the garbage can. Even if you're extremely careful, you might still get some flakes of pastels onto your chair. You have to check your chair before you sit down on it. You can imagine where those little pieces of pastels will end up if you sit down on that chair. Also, the floor. Check the floor and all around your table for pieces of pastels. Do not step on a piece of pastel. It makes a huge mess on the floor and is really hard to clean it up. Pick up any pieces of pastels that you see on the floor or on a chair or any places they don't belong and put them back into your box of pastels or into the garbage can if it's a really small piece. So if you worked hard in class, you will probably have some oil pastels on your fingertips. Wait until the end of class to wash your hands, but when it is your table's turn, make sure you use soap to get off all of the color. Oil pastels need soap and water to cut that oil and get it off of your fingertips. You will have approximately 2 to 3 class periods to finish coloring your skulls. As you're working, try to take good care of the oil pastels. By the last day, they are going to be quite worn and small, but if we all do our best to take good care of them, they won't be too bad for us to use. Thanks for listening and watching, and have fun working on your Day of the Dead skulls.